Good afternoon, Sir Elvin and everyone. I am the representative of our group to present here in front of you. So let us begin. What is gender gap? The gender gap is the difference in any area between women and men in terms of their levels of participation, access to resources, rights, and power and influence, remuneration and benefits. Of particular relevance related to women's work is the gender pay gap, describing the difference between the average earnings of men and women. So let us dig deeper. The gender pay gap or gender wage gap is the average difference between the pay for men and women who are working. Women are generally considered to be paid less than men. There are two distinct numbers regarding the pay gap: the non adjusted and the adjusted pay gap. The unadjusted pay gap is the raw relative difference between incomes of men and women, while the adjusted pay gap is the calculated relative difference between incomes when certain factors, such as differences in hours worked, occupation chosen, education, and job experience, are taken into account. The non-adjusted average female's annual salary is 79% of the average male salary, compared to 95% for the adjusted average male salary. The next is the gender pay gap in sports. Historically, sports participation has been discriminatory, favoring men over women, because sports has been viewed as an inappropriate field for women. Despite the fact that women's participation in sports has increased over time, many parts of sports still have underlying gender prejudices. The wage disparity is one of the most visible manifestations of bias, as women are paid significantly less in sports than males. The staggering pay gap between the highest paid players in men's and women's cricket in India is an example of this. Smriti Mandhana is paid 68.5 thousand US dollars per year by the Board of Control for Cricket in India, which is only 7% of Virat Kohli's annual income of 952,000 US dollars. The next is intragenerational income mobility. Intragenerational income mobility refers to the rate at which a person moves to a higher or lower income level during her or his work career. More than half of those individuals in the bottom income quintile in 1994 remained there 10 years later, and less than 4% reached the top quintile. So let us proceed to gender inequality. Gender inequality is discrimination on the basis of sex or gender, causing one sex or gender to be routinely privileged or prioritized over another. Gender equality is a fundamental human right, and that is violated by gender based discrimination. Example of this is domestic violence. Domestic violence involves an ongoing pattern of threatening, coercive, and violent behavior in a current or former domestic or intimate relationship. This not only includes physical assault but also threats, verbal abuse, emotional and physical abuse, abuse of institutional and administrative systems, economical abuse and control, social abuse and isolation, cultural or spiritual abuse, all of which cause a person to live in fear. So, a great example of domestic violence is the Johnny Depp and Amber Heard situation. The next one is the child marriage. Almost 750 million women and girls in the world today marrying before they turn 18. Early pregnancy is a common occurrence among those who suffer from child marriage. and it is a major cause and the premature termination of education. Girls become socially isolated as mothers and wives, and they are more vulnerable to domestic abuse. One of the most damaging manifestations of gender inequality is child marriage, which limits women's prospects and capacity to realize their full potential. The last one is the lack of mobility. Women are forbidden to drive in Saudi Arabia, despite numerous protests, and must rely on their fathers or husbands to get from place to place. In countries like Egypt and Bahrain, husbands have the right to stop their wives from leaving the country, while other countries require written permission from husband to travel. So this is Celso and Puerto Jr. signing off. Thank you for listening and hope you learned something. Thank you.